Hello everyone. Today you will hear from me a short retelling of an adventure thriller about two young adventurers stuck in a harbor town. They work part-time in taverns and dream of getting out of this backwater. They manage to set sail on a small yacht, but it's not so easy to live on the high seas for a few weeks with just the three of them. I am waiting for your likes and comments about the movie. The title of the movie is at the end of the clip. Let's get started. The movie begins when Paul, who has fallen overboard the boat Belladonna, calls his friend Richard for help. The storm is getting worse and the man is swept out to the open sea. Hearing the cries of his friend, Richard tries to come to his aid, but cannot because of the strong waves. On the walkie-talkie, the hero reports that the Belladonna and her crew are in danger. Richard tries to give his coordinates, but he is deafened by the wave. A week later, the hero is questioned about the tragedy with his friend Paul. Richard tells that he and his wife Mona were friends with the man for many years, and he is very grieving. In a neighboring office, one of the police officers says that he doesn't believe it, since everyone knows that Paul was Mona's lover. Stepping out into the hallway, Richard meets a nervous Mona. The man tries to talk to her, but his wife does not believe in the accident. 6 months later, Richard, nicknamed Skipper, wanders endlessly through bars, listening to taunts from other customers. During this time, a police officer is chatting with young girls, and promises that he will definitely find a ship for them. In the evening, Lou suggests that Sue ask the embassy for money for the return trip, but her friend lashes out at her and says she has no intention of going back. The girls go to a bar and perform a song. Skipper watches them with undisguised interest. After the performance, Sue rather returns to the table, but Lou continues to bask in the glory of her fame and dance quite frankly. The girl summons Richard, and asks him to collect money while she performs. In the evening, Lou learns that Skipper has his own yacht. Sue decides to take matters into her own hands, and offers the man a drink and have fun with him. In the morning, Skipper unexpectedly wakes up on his yacht, and decides to go to a cafe for breakfast. Suddenly, yesterday's beauties come up to him, dragging a bunch of bags with them. Richard asks what's going on, and Sue replies that they should sail together to Barbados. Hearing this, the beauties are called to him by the owner of the California. The man says that the skipper has not been at sea for 6 months, and is obsessed with alcohol, so there will be no voyage. The captain of the California is sure that a little more and Richard will sell his yacht and forget about the sea. These words make the hero mad, and he declares that he will never sell the Belladonna, and in addition, today goes with the girls to the island of Barbados. Richard proudly walks to his yacht, with Sue and Lou running behind him, happily discussing their budding voyage. From the station window, the officers watch the girls sailing away with the skipper with a sneer, and suppose that in 2 or 3 days the yacht will be moored again off their shore. The next morning, Sue and Lou take to wooing Richard, saying that he must not walk overgrown. The man, meanwhile, talks about the compass on board, the degree system and other nautical terms. Lou interrupts him and asks how long it will take to reach Barbados. Upon reflection, Richard informs the girl that the journey will take approximately 4 weeks. The girl is thrilled to see the islanders in a month's time and begins to dance their dances with Lou, and then beckons Richard to join them. The heroes fool around and, tired, decide to lie down on the deck. Looking at the sunlit beauties, Skipper says that this is a good life, which he never dreamed of. At night, when Sue and Lou fall asleep, Richard tries to plot a future route, but is distracted by his traveling companions. The man decides that it is best to go to Barbados via Madeira. Food should be enough. In the morning, Skipper meets the dawn with Lou. The girl enjoys immersing herself in the everyday life of a sailor, washing clothes, cooking, and helping Richard. But Sue does not share her friend's pleasure and says that she begins to get bored. After a while, Richard notices the girls sunbathing on the deck and watches them sneakily. Sue says that she has actually seen the man before, but she was not very interested in him. Back downstairs, Skipper wants to relax a bit, but notices a blonde woman and pretends he just decided to indulge in some tobacco. When Sue enters, the man warns her that it's very easy to burn in the wind, so it's a good idea to drink more water and hide in the shade. The girl pours herself some water and wants to chat, but Richard informs her that he wants to sleep for a few hours, and he and Lou will have to take turns on watch. When Sue leaves, the man returns to his interrupted business, and begins to relax under the influence of an illegal product. Despite Richard's requests, the girls simply fall asleep on board and do not notice the approaching wreckage. Luckily, however, their dog wakes up from the noise, and then Skipper. Coming out on deck, the man quarrels with the girls, saying that they should have kept their eyes open instead of sleeping. The voyage continues, and as Richard goes about his usual business, he notices Lou sitting sadly on the edge of the deck, gazing into the sunset sky. The man walks over to her and lightly strokes the girl's shoulder. During the night, Sue reports that she seems to be overheated, and Richard decides to give her first aid by lubricating her burned skin. Suddenly, the girl becomes jealous of Skipper and Lou, and chases him away. Richard goes out on deck and looks at the passing ship with the girl. Sue looks out of the cabin and asks not to disturb her rest, but her words get no response, and she, frustrated even more, returns with nothing. Writing his thoughts in his journal in the evening, Skipper reflects on the fact that girls can't be relied upon. If Lou is trying to help, Sue is just getting on his nerves. The next day, the wind picks up and the skipper takes the sails down to keep them from being torn up by the strong gusts. Lou goes upstairs to help, much to Sue's displeasure. When Richard comes downstairs, the blonde almost pounces on him and asks him not to ignore her, paying attention only to Lou. However, the man says with a smile that he has a lot to do and leaves. Determined to make a mess of the couple, Sue rubs her cheek to the point of abrasion and calls out to Lou, informing her that Richard kissed her but scratched her badly with his stubble. Back on deck, the girl watches the skipper incredulously and resentfully, who suspects nothing. Taking advantage of the man's absence, Sue decides to rummage through his things and finds a letter from Mona, where she informs him of her departure for Paul, as well as photographs of the lady. In the evening, the girl decides to repeat the styling of Richard's wife, hoping that at least this way she can attract his attention. However, the man snaps out of his seat, saying that he needs to urgently check and fix the knots. When Skipper returns, Sue begins to piss him off. The angry man throws a bottle at the wall and says that 4 weeks is a long time, but they have to get along somehow. When Skipper returns to his cabin a short time later, he finds everything clean and realizes that Lou did it for him. Suddenly a dog starts barking on deck and the skipper spots an unknown merchant ship. The man walks over the walkie-talkie and sends a message that the ship needs to change course or there will be a collision. There is no change and the skipper tries to change course himself. However, the battery is dying because the radio is on all the time, and the battery has to be restarted. Richard sees that the ship is slightly off course, but the yacht starts to hit the waves very hard. Ordering the girls to hide below, the man tries to keep the boat afloat. The next day the storm ends, and Richard and Lou decide to go for a swim and call Sue to join them. The blonde refuses, however, and decides to make dinner. Throwing out the garbage, Sue unexpectedly finds an object that makes her question Richard's adequacy. The couple decides to swim back to the yacht, when suddenly they notice that the gangway is up and the blonde is trying to start the vessel. Richard tries to climb aboard, but he fails. In a panic, Lou begins to drown, but a man rescues her and asks her to breathe deeply. Making another attempt, Skipper does climb onto the yacht and sees that the helm is fixed so that the yacht is circling around one spot. After lowering the gangplank for Lou, the hero heads over to Sue. The girl says it was just a joke and advises her friend not to trust Richard. During lunch, the man says it's worth going back. Suddenly, Sue repeats the quote from Mona's letter and tells her friend that Richard can't go back because he realizes what awaits him there. The distraught man escapes to the deck and stares doomedly at the water. Meanwhile, Sue tells her friend of her suspicions Richard has actually destroyed his wife, and the ship is full of her belongings that any woman would take with her. During this time, Skipper hunts passing sharks with a harpoon, which scares the girls even more. At night, Lou sneaks into the man's bed and tells him that she doesn't care even if he destroyed Mona and Paul. Meanwhile, Sue finds Skipper's ampoules in the refrigerator and begins to study them. Richard tells Lou that Paul had an accident after which his wife left him. Lou becomes intimate with Skipper, and deep in the night walks out on him. Awaking, Sue notices this. The next morning, the man looks for his vials in the refrigerator, but they are not there. The man quarrels with Sue and explains that they contain insulin, without which he will be comatose in the evening. The blonde woman doesn't believe him and lies that she doesn't know where the ampoules are. The skipper loses his temper and, tying a rope around Sue, pushes her overboard and tells her that he will only allow her to return when she tells him where his insulin is. Lou pleads for her friend to be spared, since she can't swim. However, Skipper goes down to the cabin and informs that he urgently needs the insulin over the radio. When he returns, he pulls Sue out and informs her that she has an hour to tell him where the ampoules are. Skipper is getting worse by the minute, but the girl is not about to tell him where the cure is. Going up on deck, the man sees a salvageable ship, but Lou is crying, and says that he is crazy and there is nothing on the horizon. The girl goes down to the cabin, and guesses that Sue has hidden the insulin in the globe. The skipper asks Lou to help him, and administer the insulin, as he is no longer able to do so. The next morning, Sue goes on deck and sees that Lou and Skipper are together. The girl starts to cry, but Lou calms her down. In the afternoon, the beauties decide to perform for Richard in smart dresses. Suddenly, Lou leaves and returns with a harpoon, injuring Skipper. A weeping Sue asks why she did it and hides in the cabin. However, Lou comes inside, and says that she destroyed Skipper for her, because he was dangerous. Sue starts crying and becomes hysterical. Lou gets mad, so she decides to use a pillow to keep her quiet. Lou then calmly makes herself some tea and sits down next to her lifeless friend. The credits at the end of the movie tell us that 3 weeks later, the Belladonna is berthed on a Caribbean island. No one was found on board. This is the end of the movie. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this movie, and see you in new videos.